Maria Titizian.
And I'm Rubina Margosian, and this is the Week in Review.
Every week we bring you the stories shaping Armenia and the region.
From politics and policy to social issues and conflict, we break down the news and what it means for you.
This week in the news, former President Robert Kocharyan gives lengthy press conference, announces his alliance will run in next year's parliamentary elections. Zvartnots International Airport announces $500 million expansion plan, and 2 relatives of missing soldiers charged following scuffles with police during last week's protest. These stories and more in our weekly roundup of the news.
This week, several public figures announced plans to take part in next year's parliamentary election. Former human rights defender Arman Tatoyan has officially announced his bid for prime minister, unveiling his new Wings of Unity initiative this week. Tatoyan said that while he has dedicated his career to human rights, the current moment calls for political action to bring about real change. The goal, he explained, is to unite Armenians around progress and what he calls genuine peace, emphasizing the need to rebuild the country's fractured political system and restore public trust in the state. Former Artsakh Defense Army Commander Samvel Babayan announced political cooperation with former National Security Service head and Homeland Party leader Artur Vanetsyan, hinting that Vanetsyan could be a candidate for prime minister. The two will back the Homeland Party's nominee Khachik Manukyan in the upcoming municipal elections in Echmiadzin. Homeland Party representatives later confirmed cooperation with Babayan during the Echmiadzin race, but said there has been no discussions beyond that. Meanwhile, human rights lawyer Nina Karapetyan also announced her bid for prime minister. Presenting her platform last week, she called for unity around 3 principles: replacing the presidency with a collegial state council, creating a transparent digital state — she didn't explain what this was — and ensuring Armenia's security through self-reliance rather than external guarantees. As for the Republican Party, former President Serge Sargsyan said the party has not yet decided whether it will participate in the election or not.
Well, it's heating up, isn't it, Rubina? We have a lot to look forward to in the coming year. This week, Armenia's second President Robert Kocharyan held another lengthy press conference focusing on the 2026 parliamentary elections, the August 8 Washington Accords, and several other topics. Kocharyan confirmed that his team will take part in the parliamentary elections next year. He said who will be leading the ballot is still not clear, but will depend on polling data, emphasizing that whoever can attract the most votes should lead. Current data, according to the former president, gives Pashinyan 0 chance of re-election unless the opposition makes mistakes. We don't know what data he's referring to. He also said that polling shows, again, I don't know where he's getting these numbers from, 2 opposition forces, his Armenia Alliance, and a new party being formed by Samvel Karapetyan, a slightly trailing civil contract, but together holding a clear majority. He said he would welcome the emergence of a third force, and there's several Rubina forces that are coming together. He said a lot of things, but I'm just going to sort of focus on the August 8 Accords. He claimed that under the documents signed in Washington, the U.S. effectively gained control over a future corridor crossing Armenian territory, along with the de facto oversight of the border with Iran.
It was difficult to hear him use Azerbaijani vocabulary with the corridor.
That's what a lot of analysts were also saying. Azerbaijan, he said, secured a transit corridor through Armenia, the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk group, and the repeal of Section 907, while Armenia got nothing out of it. According to Kocharyan, he argued that the U.S. is being handed control of Armenia's most strategically valuable land, warning that without functioning railway links to Iran or Russia, the whole project is meaningless and dangerous even. He criticized the prime minister's peace policy, unsurprisingly saying it rests entirely on Ilham Aliyev's goodwill and lacks guarantees or monitoring mechanisms. Peace, he said, cannot exist without a balance of forces. Yet while Azerbaijan is increasing its military budget, Armenia continues to cut its own. See, this is what when we're talking about, it's not about Kocharyan, it's about all of the discussions that are happening in sort of the public discourse, right? They're not saying that Armenia's defense spending went from 500 million to 1.7 billion and now is being cut to 1.4 billion. They're just saying,
which is much higher than at any point during his presidency.
Yeah.
And Armenia's, even with the recent cut, is still higher than basically with the exception of last year. Using terms corridor and saying stuff like Armenia got nothing other than Pashinyan getting a photo with Trump, which is something he has in the White House with the US president as well. It's it's almost childish, these narratives, and it's very difficult for us to keep repeating that, yes, the expenditure has been cut for military spending, but it's still higher than any point in recent years. Ever.
In Armenia's history as an independent state. He also added, and this is just the final thing, like I said, he talked about many things, a lot of which was speculative, and he's sort of not grounded in any kind of facts. But he did say that if the U.S. truly had vital interests in the South Caucasus, Trump wouldn't confuse Armenia with Albania or Azerbaijan with Cambodia. Washington got what it wanted, he said, and we must now have the courage to pursue our own interests.
And just because Kocharyan himself started it, the talk of basically the online community has been his command of the Armenian language. So if Trump confuses the names of the countries, he can speak the language of the country that he's been a president of. Like, let's also kind of point that out. Well, in other news, former chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Luis Moreno Ocampo, questions the impartiality of a UN decision on Ruben Vartanyan's detention in Azerbaijan. On February 17, the UN working group on arbitrary detention concluded that Vartanyan's imprisonment was not arbitrary. But according to Ocampo, Jana Yudkivska, the group's chair rapporteur who took part in drafting that opinion, has professional, financial, and personal ties to Azerbaijan, calling the decision's validity into question. Yudkivska is a partner at an equity law firm which represents Azerbaijan's state oil company, SOCAR. Her husband, a Ukrainian politician facing corruption charges, also has close political ties to Azerbaijan and has publicly supported Baku's stance on Nagorno-Karabakh. Ocampo argues that these connections violate UN rules requiring independence, impartiality, and recusal in cases of conflict of interest. He notes that while the rapporteur has recused herself from Russia-related cases in the past, she did not do so in Vartanyan's case, even though Vartanyan is sanctioned by Ukraine for his alleged ties to Russia. The findings, Ocampo says, give Vartanyan's legal team grounds to seek a review of the decision and raise broader concerns about trust and independence within the UN human rights mechanisms.
And Yerevan Zvartnots International Airport has announced a $500 million expansion plan to meet growing passenger demand. Over the past 2 years, annual traffic has topped 5.5 million, well beyond the airport's original capacity of 3 to 4 million. The decade-long project will double the airport's total area and add a brand new terminal. Boarding gates will increase from 6 to 16, while arrival halls, immigration, and customs zones will more than double in size. Passengers will also benefit from expanded lounges, more parking, and improved public transport access. The airport will also support automated digital passport gates and a new biometric passport system, making travel easier for Armenian citizens, especially to Europe. The overarching goal is to strengthen Armenia's position as a competitive regional hub and ensure the airport can handle growth well into the next decade.
And Armenia's foreign ministry is creating a new European integration department separated from the European Directorate to strengthen EU-related work. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Pashinyan was in Brussels for the Global Gateway International Conference, a high-level forum bringing together governments, financial institutions, the private sector, and civil society to advance global connectivity in digital, energy, and transport sectors under the EU's Global Gateway strategy. On the sidelines, he met with EU Commissioner for Enlargement, Marta Kos, to discuss the new Armenia-EU partnership agenda and the implementation of its ambitious strategic actions. And Armenia Security Council Secretary Armen Grigoryan met with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kopyrkin to review the Armenia-Russia bilateral agenda and explore further cooperation, emphasizing the ongoing collaboration between their Security Council offices.
This week, Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan presented the outcomes of the Washington Summit and the TRIP project at the session of the CIS Council of Heads of State in Dushanbe, Tajikistan. He highlighted that the TRIP project, this is the Trump Road for International Peace and Prosperity, will give Armenia rail and other transport links with Azerbaijan and other CIS countries, strengthening economic ties and boosting the organization's effectiveness. The project also opens new export and import opportunities for CIS member states. Pashinyan emphasized that while quote-unquote peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan has been established, the broader agenda is far from complete. Both countries still need to develop trade, economic, political, and cultural ties and address humanitarian issues. Yet, according to him, confirmed peace provides confidence that these challenges can be gradually resolved. Again, he keeps talking in a way that makes someone believe that peace has been established. Normalization has begun, but to call it peace is a little premature. But
to
this
say,
is,
yeah,
to
very
say the
softly.
least. On the sidelines of the council, Pashinyan met with Tajikistan's president, Emomali Rahmon, where they discussed bilateral ties and ways to boost trade and economic cooperation.
And back to local news, Robert Kocharyan's son, President Kocharyan, has filed a lawsuit against the Republic of Armenia, claiming his right to presumption of innocence was violated, and he is seeking 2 million drams in non-material damages. According to his lawyer, Haik Alumyan, during Kocharyan's ongoing case, the prosecutor involved in the case presented the allegations against Kocharyan as established facts in a televised interview. Alumyan says the prosecutor did not present them as accusations, but as confirmed crimes, even though the trial had not yet begun and no verdict has been issued. He also clarified that the lawsuit targets the Republic of Armenia because the state, through the Prosecutor General's office, is responsible for the breach. Kocharyan was charged with allegedly assisting Ser Sarkisyan in engaging in prohibited entrepreneurial activities and receiving a particularly large bribe. The indictment also claims he later sought to legalize a property obtained through these bribes, disguising the origin, ownership, and nature of the assets through a series of bank transactions.
And Armenia's anti-corruption court has ordered former culture minister Hasmik Bogosyan to pay over 25 million dirhams in damages to the state. The case stems from restoration contracts signed in 2007 and 2008 between Bogosyan and the company Gugark for work at Gobayr Monastery under the Monument Restoration Program. According to the Prosecutor General's office, the allocated funds were later found to have been embezzled. Since leaving office, several criminal cases have been launched against Bogosyan and some of her family members.
Armenian citizen Armen Balayan has been sentenced to 12 years in a Russian court, found guilty under mercenary laws. The Russian authorities say Balayan went to Ukraine from Moldova before November 2022, voluntarily joining a defense brigade and other Ukrainian military units participating in operations for payment. After being wounded several times, he left Ukraine and was arrested in October of 2024 at Moscow's Domodedovo airport. Meanwhile, Armenia released a Georgian national who was detained at the Armenia-Georgia border in September on a Russian warrant accusing him of fighting against Russian forces in Ukraine. Yerevan rejected the extradition request over concerns for his safety.
Two relatives of missing soldiers have been charged following scuffles with military police during a protest last week. Arsen Ghukasyan is in custody, while Abidjan Gevorkian has been released pending investigation and has signed a document not to leave the country. Both face charges of hooliganism and interference with the pretrial process and the lawful duties of officials. The protests were staged by parents and relatives of soldiers missing from the 2020 war in Artsakh, demanding answers about their children and what the state is doing to locate them. Tensions rose amid a heavy police presence with occasional scuffles. The Defense Ministry said protesters were treated respectfully, though some threw bottles and other objects at military police.
And on October 9, a fire broke out again at the Nubarashan landfill, just a few kilometers from central Yerevan. Officials say the main blaze has now been extinguished.
Excuse me, no, it has not, because this morning as I was coming to the office, I was admiring Mount Ararat because it was stunning this morning. But then I saw this, what looked like a beautiful cloud, to be honest, and then I realized it's a plume of smoke. It's just been awful. I don't know. Maybe at this point, as we're recording, it's been extinguished, but as of this morning, it was raging.
Well, this is not the first time. It's the second fire at the site in just 2 months, with the previous blaze covering around 5 hectares. The municipality says the long-standing problem of the 75-year-old landfill can only be addressed by building a waste recycling plant through collaboration between the government, local authorities, and the private sector. They've announced this upcoming plant, but we might have to suffer several other
Several
fires
fires.
before it's even slightly a reality.
Yeah, unfortunately. And as always, we're going to talk about some of the articles we published this week. Today, one by Dikran Yerevan called Nation, Faith, and Diaspora at a Crossroads. He's looking at, what's been happening with the church and state relations, but not only. Long seen as a pillar of Armenian identity, the Armenian Apostolic Church, now finds its relationship with the state quite strained. Political change, post-war trauma, and institutional mistrust have blurred boundaries between spiritual and secular authority. He writes, raising urgent questions about legitimacy, governance, and the need for reform, and also the church's role in public life.
Yeah, it's interestingly, he's also bringing in Antillas into the conversation that usually gets left out and yet should be considered as part of the broader conversation. And slightly frustrating, but also a lot of fun. The next article we're going to talk about, it's called License to Chaos, The Reality of Driving in Yerevan. It's by Hranush Dermoyan, and we at the office have been witness and part of her frustrations. And
trying to get a driver's license.
Trying to get a driver's license and trials and tribulations and trying to understand where should she apply when she can take the test next. And one thing that she says in the article that I think a lot of people resonates with a lot of people is that being afraid to drive in Armenia is not just based on your own abilities, whether or not you're a good driver. It's also mistrusts towards the other drivers
and pedestrians.
Yeah,
I can attest to that after driving in Armenia for 25 years. I'm still scared sometimes, to be honest, but
I'm largely in my role as a pedestrian.
Yeah, in the piece by our creative tech editor Ani Toroyan called Digitech 2025, where Armenia's tech future never sleeps. And actually, Digitech is launching today. It has already begun. It's marking its 20th anniversary, and it's 3 days of innovation, creativity, and connection. It has a global lineup of speakers, AI-driven discussions. They're going to be talking about investment opportunities, and there will be a lot of cultural events also taking place in the city.
And right after we're done recording, we'll be on our way to Digitech because you're on a panel to discuss AI and journalism.
Yes, good luck to me.
It's a brave new world, Maria.
Indeed.
And we did publish the next installment of Unleashed by Sheila Pylan. This time it's called Forgive Me Not. And the author is talking about forgiveness and saying it's often misunderstood, whether as surrender, self-help, or moral performance. And as usual, drawing from personal experience and collective trauma, Sheila explores the tension between justice and mercy, insisting that peace built on truth, not amnesia, is the only kind that endures.
And we have another piece by Gaiz Minasyan. He always has the tendency to, what's the word I'm looking for? Create discussion. Right?
Oh, yes.
And this one is called Armenia, the Force of the Norm, or the Norm of Force. He writes that Armenia, as we know, stands at another historic crossroads. It seems we're forever at a historic crossroad. And he looks at the country's defining tension between the force of the norm, that's law, sovereignty, and peace, and the norm of force, which is justice, identity, and conflict, asking which path will shape Armenia's future. And so it was an interesting one, as always.
And before we move on to the last lifestyle piece we published and the itinerary, you spoke with Narses Kopalian. We published just yesterday the latest installment of Examining the Context, and this time it's called Why Aliyev Agreed to the American Proposal.
Yeah. Why did he? I mean, these were questions. It's the elephant in the room for us Armenians, right? How is it that he agreed to move forward with that? Yeah.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah, the security reports is on our website, still on the front page. So is this podcast. So for everyone who's read or hasn't read the security report, we recommend listening to the podcast. But also on the other side of the spectrum, on our content,
from security to shoes,
security to shoes, we did publish the last article of this month's already last month, September's lifestyle magazine, Salt. It's a photo story and also a profile of one of Armenia's better-known shoemakers, Haik Ananyan. It's by Arek Balayan. It's called Of Shoes and Their Maker. A little provocative.
Yes, indeed.
Photo story, but also kind of interesting.
Yeah, beautiful photos,
Yes,
to be
yes.
honest. The foot with the
More
cigarette.
stylized
Yes.
than we've ever been.
Indeed. Yeah, it was a great read. And also the itinerary, which is our cultural itinerary, curated by Viken Galastyan. And it's quite extensive. I was complaining to you yesterday, 6 pages long.
7.
7 pages long. But seriously, if you want to know what's happening in Armenia, from contemporary art to rediscovered masters to global collaborations, philosophical meditations on home and identity, please check it out. It's also on the front page of our website. And that's the kind of week it's been here in Armenia. Thank you for listening. Have a safe and peaceful weekend, and we'll be back again next week.